Hello again, everyone. I hope you had a good exhibition hall lunch. We're coming into the end of the convention with the two last speakers for the afternoon. And next we have Patton. Sean was in Cleveland and he was so good we asked him to come again. And we even asked him to come at our place of work. We thought he was so good. So I hope you really enjoy him. Sean is an incredibly inspiring man. He captivated us all last year with the humanity he brings in team leadership. I was personally so impressed at the vulnerability, hard word, and authenticity he shared with us. Sean graduated from the United States Military Academy in 2005 and then served 10 years as an active U.S. Army infantry and special forces officer. Sean commanded frontline troops overseas for 30 months of his career, including both Iraq and Afghanistan. His military and award highlights include the Ranger Tab, Special Forces Tab, the Combat Infantryman's Badge for engaging the enemy in direct fire combat, and 2 times Bronze Star.
Sean's passion have always been leadership and problem solving. He now helps individual and organization build more fulfilling and profitable futures as an executive coach and leadership consultant with his company Stronger Leaders, Stronger Profits. He has worked with Fortune 500 companies like Bridgestone Tires and General Electric, fast-growing startup, and 9-figure nonprofits.
His book, Warrior's Mindset, The 6 Keys to Greatness, was recently released. This framework provides a roadmap to achieving fulfillment, living with purpose, and maximizing one's positive impact on the world. We will get a glimpse of this technique today with this conference, Thriving and Inspiring, the Leadership Revolution has arrived. Welcome, Sean.
All right, excited to be here. Oh, it works, awesome. I appreciate you guys hanging in here with me. I'm excited to be invited back and be able to speak with you. I know this is the dreaded after lunch session, so if you have to stand up or go grab coffee, you won't offend me. But hopefully we'll keep you engaged because we're going to talk about a topic that is near and dear to my heart and should be to yours because it's critical to your success. So why leadership? Why am I obsessed with it? Why are we talking about it today? Well, there's a few reasons. Through my time, I've probably spent 14 years in the military undergoing what a lot of people would consider the most intense education, training, and experiences you can possibly imagine. 4 years at West Point, and then, there's not that many jobs at 23 years old, they say, here's 40 people and $10 million worth of equipment. You're responsible for all their lives. But that's what was handed to me. So it was a lot to take in. And then that didn't stop from there. Moving forward through deployments and other commands. I went through 2 years of training, got my Green Beret, showed up to my first team as the commander, 28 years old, ready to go, youngest guy on the team. So some of you may be able to relate to that type of experience, showing up and be working with people who have more functional experience in what's going on, but you're still in charge. You're still the leader. They still need you to fill that role. So I learned a ton throughout that, and I also came to appreciate the power of leadership. And unfortunately, toward the end of my military career, I also got exposed to a little higher level of leadership in the military and our government especially, and with some larger international corporations that I worked with. And it seemed like it was kind of lacking. Like at my level, and as I came up over that decade of time, I was surrounded by, in my opinion, some of the best leaders I'd ever met in my entire life. They were committed to the cause. They were selfless leaders. They gave everything they had. They committed themselves to the team and the mission, and they were all in. And I didn't necessarily see that at the higher levels, and that was concerning. To go to sort of the highest levels and illustrate this, just a few months ago, they came out with an annual survey on different institutions in this country and the population's confidence in them. And an all-time low for our senior elected leaders of Congress of 7%. And in the military, I kind of saw the same thing. And I was trying to figure out why. The reality is it comes down to systems and culture. So if the systems and the culture aren't set up to promote the type of leaders that you want, and instead use a different metric, we're not going to have success. And then as I tried to make changes and get involved, it became very difficult to make changes to the machine when you're in the machine. So I decided to leave the military and move into business. Now, I knew nothing about business. There's not a lot of business admin classes at West Point, if you can imagine that. So I thought, well, what do I need to do to learn as much about business as I can to try to take these lessons and make them apply in a meaningful way? So I will get a formal education in business, got my MBA check, and then start my own company and get it self-sustainably profitable. As a person who had spent all their time in the military since 3 weeks out of high school, it sounded pretty easy. It was not. So if you maybe started your own companies or worked in business long enough, know that that is a tall proposition. And there's a lot of ups and downs as I went through that. But I accomplished it. I got a company that was self-sustainably profitable, and I started my company, Stronger Leaders, Stronger Profits. Check, let's move on, drive on to the mission. And I was lucky enough, I'd start working with different executives, and we mentioned a few of the companies, big companies that I was starting to work with in my first year of business, which is kind of crazy as a leadership coach and consultant. But it was going very well in the small groups. And then I was working with some senior executives of a Fortune 500 company, one-on-one. And I'm like, now we can really get into the deep dive into it, the meat and potatoes of leadership. Let's start making change. Let's get after it. And as I started talking about whole person leadership, I started talking about how do we inspire others to become thriving individuals? How do we raise humanity with our leadership and our businesses and provide values and service? And I started realizing this isn't working. Why? Why am I struggling when I'm talking to these highly successful senior executives that when I talk about leadership, they couldn't get there? When I talked about management, they're fantastic, right? They're good with people, right? They understand their business more than almost anyone else. When it came to KPIs and metrics and performance, they were on top of it. And then I started asking them, all right, you seem like a successful person. They're like, yeah. Okay, cool. So what's important in your life? Well, family, friends, relationships, my team's doing well. And then we started having conversations about those things, and they weren't successful in those areas. And not only were they not successful in those areas, but they had no plan about how to make themselves successful in that area. And so, I just kept digging. Anyone out here have toddlers or used to have toddlers? Any parents out there? Got a few? Okay. So I sort of live my life like an overactive and curious 3-year-old. And I've got one question I just kept asking. Can you guys guess what it is? Yeah, thank you. Yeah, why exactly? I didn't even have to give any hints. Why? Well, I don't know I'm not comfortable having that conversation. Why? Well, I'm not sure how I would even phrase it. Why? Oh, because you haven't done the work on your mindset to be able to speak from a place of authenticity about how to be a thriving person. And the world is changing. We're going to talk about that. And the expectation of leadership culture inside businesses, the expectation of the people that are coming to you, of your managers, and what they expect to get out of their job, these lines are being blurred. And we have to start having these conversations. So I thought, all right, I need to step back and come up with a framework. If I'm going to coach and help people do this, I need to help them get there. And I can't put them through 4 years at West Point and make them go to Ranger School and sleep in the dirt, right? Go on missions and learn hard lessons where they get shot at in the mountains of Afghanistan. So how do I do this? So I came up with the 6 keys to greatness. Now, we're not going to go deep into this, okay? We're going to talk specifically about leadership. But I want to understand where I'm coming from on this when it applies to you as an individual, how I see this. And I did the same process here. I kept asking why, dig deeper. Believe me, I tried to get to 5 keys. I tried to get to 4 keys, and I just had hit rock bottom. And so the first key to greatness is perspective and gratitude. And if you or the people that you work with don't have this, don't live with that, you can't go anywhere else. I'm going to give some examples about perspective and gratitude and what this means. But if you think about globally, historically, where we're at right now, and you don't feel an intense sense of extreme gratitude for the opportunities in your lifestyle, you're not looking hard enough. Do you know 3 lifetimes ago in this country, in the early 1800s, the total child mortality rate for death under 5 was 48.2%. So if you've been born 3 generations earlier and you were in a neighborhood, just imagine living in that neighborhood, and by the age of 5, half the kids are just gone. And that's not a tragedy, that's just normal. That's an average day. That's crazy to think about right now. I don't know, man, how many of you have spent time maybe camping, maybe you enjoy the outdoors. That's fantastic. In the military, it's a little different. I spent a lot of time in the mud, in the rain, shivering, laying outside. And let me tell you, for those of you who haven't spent a lot of time sleeping outside versus sleeping inside, but sleeping inside is way better. Like immeasurably better to sleep inside. So every time I get to pull up that blanket, every time I get to pet my dog, every time I get to look over at my wife, every time I'm cold and I go over hitting a button and it gets warmer, or I'm hot and I hit a button and it gets colder, I'm filled with gratitude. And we're not going to do it today, but one thing I'll have if my clients are struggling with this, I'll say, all right, this is a super simple exercise, but write down 5 things you're grateful for every day for 20 days and don't repeat it. And in 20 days, you have a list of 100 things that you can reflect back on when you're struggling with gratitude. And the importance about gratitude is it provides an infinite fuel source that can drive you forward. Because there's going to be days we wake up and we're not motivated. There's going to be times where we feel bad. We're going to have trouble at home. Whatever we have going on in our lives, we're not going to feel good. But gratitude is there. The perspective of how lucky you are right now and the potential you have to impact the people around you in the world is unprecedented. So that's your fuel. Internal locus of control. This is how we harness our power. This is having the understanding that we don't control everything, but our decisions, our actions, and our inactions overwhelmingly dictate our future. We all know people with an external locus of control. They're the people who always, whether it goes good or bad, right? Oh, I didn't get my promotion. I've been here longer. Oh, they just don't like me. Oh, they want to promote a diversity hire. They want to do this. They want to do that. Or they get promoted and they're like, well, it was my time, I guess. It's like just never happy, right? It's always the outside force. This is where entitlement and victimization comes in. We can't allow that in ourselves. We can't allow that in organizations. So we're going to harness our power by owning our futures. The third key to greatness is a North Star theory, or purpose. I'm just going to give you the North Star theory up front, and I'm going to repeat it twice because it's a lot of words. We won't go too deep into it, but that's the belief that every living creature on this planet is its happiest and most content when its activities and environment are aligned with its genetic purpose. So I got taught that lesson about what the purpose of life is from my dog Java, and I talked about it last time I was here. Because she was chasing a ball and bringing it back to me, just in pure ecstasy. I don't know if anyone has dogs or a Labrador Retriever, but until she falls over, she's chasing this ball. And I thought, man, that must be nice. Must be nice that's that easy, right? Find your life purpose, ball's life. I mean, I was going through a rough time in my life, and it sounded pretty good to me at the time. And I realized because she's genetically designed to chase that ball. Every cell in her body is designed to chase the ball and bring it back, because that's what she's designed for. And I thought, well, can this apply other places? And even look at plants. Let's take it the lowest life form. Not the lowest, but a lower life form, okay? My wife and I don't have kids yet, but I think she's turning our house into a greenhouse until we do, because I just increasingly am surrounded by plants in my house. So it's really relevant to me in this juncture. But you can't take a plant that's supposed to be in the desert and water it every day and think it's going to do well. You can't take a plant that's supposed to be in the sun and put it in the shade. It's not going to do well. Its activities and environment have to be aligned with genetic purpose. And this is true with animals too. When the pandemic hit, I went through a 6-month stage where all I watched was all the zoo shows. I don't know if you guys watch the zoo shows like HGTV or Net Geo. If you haven't, if you like animals, go watch the zoo shows. They're amazing, okay? They're super cool. But one of the things they showed on there were these things called enrichment activities. So you have a lion, let's say an apex predator that's inside a cage. It's got health, all the health care it wants. It's got all the food it wants. It's safe. No one's hunting it, right? It's not having to compete for mates or anything else. And it's deteriorating until they let it hunt. They have to simulate a hunt. It has to go chase something, attack something, do it, and then they give it food, and then it improves its mental condition. Its activities and environment have to be aligned with its genetic purpose. So as we talk through fulfillment when it comes to leadership for ourselves and the mindset for us and leadership for others, how we can create fulfillment inside our organizations, you have to keep in mind that we are communal creatures. So it's all right to have individual goals. I want to achieve this. I want to do this. I want to have that. That's okay. But it's not going to lead to fulfillment. Believe me, I work with a lot of miserable millionaires. We're communal creatures, so to have a fulfilling purpose for you and your organization, it has to be about impacting others. And you can prove this easily with people too, right? If you put us in isolation, it's literally torture. We mentally deteriorate if we don't have human contact, because we're not designed to be in isolation. We're designed to interact with other people, and I can go way into the science behind all that, but let me just say that we're designed to live in tribes, and our entire reward system is based around impacting the lives of other people. So we need a direction to go here, okay? We're going to move on to self-discipline. Without self-discipline, you have nothing. That self-discipline separates the dreamers from the doers. Then perseverance, grit to finish. Hopefully, now, or maybe this presentation or some thoughts here help spur you to go even further with your own journey and your own mindset and explore your own purpose. But when you shift from, my goal in life is to be comfortable, I want a nice house, good car, leather seats, kids that are healthy and happy, to I'm going to change the world, I'm going to change my family's life, I'm going to change my community, I'm going to maximize my potential as a human being, you better get tough. You better learn resilience, because it's a bumpy road. And not just for challenges, not just for the hard times. I'll tell you what kills most people's potential for greatness in this country, way more than obstacles and challenges: apathy. You can be fired up in your 20s and 30s, and you're going, you get the family, and then it's like, well, I'm getting a little tired, and my house is pretty nice and comfortable, and Netflix is awesome, and I'm just going to sit here, and then all of a sudden, yeah, good enough. But I'll tell you, apathy will leave you on a deathbed filled with material wealth, filled with the emptiness of regret for what could have been with your life. So watch out for it. So that's all about you. That's all about your mindset. Then we get into leadership. This is what we're going to talk about today. Okay? And that's the amplification of your impact. Like, you're going to go in this cycle, right? Yeah, hopefully by the time you get back, you've got a new perspective and more gratitude, and you can just strengthen yourself over and over again as you get older. I mean, my God, I hope you're not the same person at 20 that you are at 40 or 50 or 60. Hopefully you're better, wiser, stronger. So you keep working through all that, but if we're really going to maximize our impact, we have to involve other people. So that's where this compounding leadership theory comes into play. Sort of a quintessential discussion. You may have it in your own businesses. If any of you have been to business schools or leadership discussions, you've probably talked about the difference between management and leadership. But it's a clear distinction, because we're going to talk about leadership today, not management. But how do they interact? Management is about efficiency and effectiveness within a system's potential, right? So you can manage a hydroelectric system. You can manage your operations on the plant. You can manage the water flow inside of a hydro system or something, right? You can, if you get really good, you can get it to where it's almost nearly 100% reaching its potential. But then you're stopped, right? I can't, no matter how hard I want to, lead the flow rate of my hydroelectric system, I can't make it do more than it's designed to do. But people, you can. Leadership increases the potential of individuals and of a system of human beings, but it's a unique concept, a unique phenomenon with just human beings, nothing else. So, this is actually an illustration from my book. And in the book, when you're close, it's really clear that this is like a burnt log, and there's a whole like outdoorsy theme to the book, so it makes a lot of sense. And I just realized last month when I put this up that it kind of looks like a burnt cigarette, which is not what it's intended to be. So these are, I'm not encouraging chain smoking or anything like that here, but yeah, it's a burnt log. So if you look at it, the first set, right, is good management, bad leadership. So you have the total potential of the system, and then as you go from top to bottom, you get better and better management practices, and the total capabilities of the system improves until you hit the potential. Then you're done, right? These are the KPIs, the metrics, right? Making sure there's no choke points. I mean, you guys are in construction, Scott. I mean, you know all about project management and how to make all this stuff work, right? Super important. I'm not saying it's not important. It is important. And if you look here, compared to the next one down, with bad management, good leadership, which is not as common, but it's possible, right? You come in fired up, and we're going to inspire, and we're going to do all these things, but you don't actually know how to do it. Like there's no tactical skills to make it all happen. Then you might increase people's total potential, what they think can be done, and when everyone's ready to go, and it'll drag along capabilities a bit. But if you have to choose between good management and bad leadership, and bad management and good leadership, you're actually better off having good management and bad leadership. And this is what most companies do because it's easier. And then once they hit that potential, they just spend more money. They just hire more people. But I don't know if you guys have ever heard of a positive feedback loop. I'm sure some of you have. That's what you get when you put good management and good leadership together. So a positive feedback loop is the output of the system also creates the input. And the best example I come up with is a nuclear reaction. I don't know why, it's just what it seems to make sense in my head. I'm also not a nuclear physicist. So if anyone's a nuclear physicist in here, please give me some grace on screwing this up. But basically a nuclear reaction happens, right? And then it spits off an extra electron, which hits another thing, and it makes it go off, and it keeps going, and it just gets bigger and bigger. And if it's uncontrolled, that's what an atomic bomb is. And if you have a nuclear power plant, and you don't cool it with an outside system, that positive feedback loop turns into a meltdown and a disaster, right? That's what happens when you combine management and leadership. Because you have these management practices and people's performance start to increase, and they say, oh man, I didn't even realize I could do this. I didn't know I could make this many sales. I didn't know I could get my people to work this way. I didn't know we could work this fast. I didn't know, oh man, okay, this is great. And then you have a good leader that comes up and says, guess what, you can do even more. Let me show you how. And they're like, really? And they keep growing and growing and growing. And then the more they expand their mindset in terms of their total potential, and the more you get a team to buy in, then you've got synergies amongst the team, and it plays into it, and the management gets better, and so on and so forth. And you unlock incredible potential inside your organization. The reality is today, that people want to be led. They are craving to be led, not just managed. They're looking for purpose. We're so lucky that our basic needs of food, safety, security, psychological safety, all those things, for the most part, most people in this country, they're all met. Now what? If we have these higher levels of consciousness, of self-awareness and transcendence and enlightenment, we're looking for meaning. We're looking for more than just going through life like a robot. And more, this is what people are demanding inside their workforce. Management will get you to good. I don't know what happened, I guess I went off of that. Management will get you to good, but leadership is required to get you to greatness. Hopefully some of you have read, it's almost 20 years old now, probably, Good to Great by Jim Collins, a kind of quintessential business book, right? And he did this huge study in the 20th century of all these companies that got to a certain level, and then why did some just stop, fizzle, or just maintain being good, and some became elite, some became great companies? What's the difference? And there's only a few key drivers, but the number one was quality leadership. It's an absolute key for greatness inside your company. It's an absolute key to increase profitability. It's an absolute key to create contentment and fulfillment inside your organization. So I want to talk about two fundamental truths about leadership here. One, leadership is the most powerful force on the planet. And two, that it's the greatest competitive advantage for your organization. So let's look historically. Abraham Lincoln, a great leader. Here's the thing about leadership. It's not always popular. It's not going with the crowd. By definition, if you look at what everyone else is doing and you go that way, you're racing to the mean. What's the mean? The mean is average. So if you're just looking around your competitors, but what's everybody else doing, and you just do what they do, you're racing to average. If that's your goal, that's fine. But I only have one life to live, and I refuse to accept mediocrity for it. And I hope you don't. One of my favorite quotes, I've got a quote here for these 3 slides that mean a lot to me, and this is one I actually I like to lead my entire life by, that I think describes Abraham Lincoln and the type of leader, type of person you have to become to be an effective leader. And it's by Gerald Bernard Shaw, and it says, "The reasonable man adapts himself to the world. The unreasonable man persists in trying to adapt the world to himself. Therefore, all progress depends on the unreasonable man." You have to be unreasonable. You can't just accept things the way they are. You have to look at what the way things should be, and then guide your path for you and your organization toward that vision. It's the only thing that drives us forward as human beings. Now you might be like, what, Hitler? What's going on? This is crazy. Also, in the world we live in, I had to put bad down here because I knew somebody's going to take a picture and put like, Sean Patton came and talked to us and he was talking about how good Hitler was. And I was like, I can't have that. Okay, so Hitler's bad. But this is important because another important quote, and one that rings true to me in my life about leadership, is that John Stuart Mill's quote, which says, "Bad men need nothing more to compass their ends than good men should look on and do nothing." So when it comes to leadership, when it comes to your potential, what I'm trying to say here is, passing the buck is not an acceptable answer. Because all it takes is someone to use leadership for bad ends and us for sit around and do nothing to make every atrocity, nearly every atrocity that has happened in humanity's history has been from someone with a bad actor using leadership to get people to meld them to their will and other people not doing anything about it. And that's not okay. You have to be courageous as a leader. The world needs you to be. And then finally, in a more recent time, you look at someone like Dr. King. And the thing about leadership, it's about a person you become, and it's about values, it's about vision, it's not about an individual. If you look at what he accomplished in his message, right, even after he was killed, it lived on. It's bigger than him. It's bigger than you. It's this sort of, leadership is this sort of existential connective tissue for all of us to come together to accomplish big and great things. And my quote for Dr. King is for another one of my favorite quotes from Eleanor Roosevelt. It said, "Small minds discuss people, average minds discuss events, and great minds discuss ideas." You should be having conversations with leaders in your companies about great ideas. The only path to achieve the potential inside your organization, the potential that it has, whatever that is for you and the leaders inside your organization to commit 100% to achieving your potential. You are the limiting variable of your team. Your team's capabilities will never outgrow your mindset and your beliefs. So you have to stay ahead of them. Otherwise, you're going to have a team of go-getters that are ready to do great things, and you're not capable of leading them because you fell behind. You must also hold those accountable in your organization who fail to meet your standards of excellence. And excellence doesn't mean perfection, but it means a passion for mission. It means a commitment to constant improvement. And it means disciplined execution inside your organization. So hopefully I've convinced you of the power of leadership. It's literally the only thing that has been driving everything that is big and meaningful for our entire existence. Maybe some of you have heard of the Great Resignation. Anybody? This new thing where people are leaving their jobs, maybe? Okay, yeah, I thought so. Okay. So let's talk about that when it comes to how leadership is the greatest competitive advantage for your organization. So this is a meta study that came out last year, and it listed the top 10 reasons for employee burnout and turnover. This is why your people are leaving, according to them. It's a huge meta study. It took like 20 other studies and put the data together. And I looked at it, and I said, well, yeah, I mean, that makes sense. But to me, it's much simpler. Because when I look at this, I see 9 symptoms and 1 cause. Everything else listed there is a symptom of poor leadership. Everything. Negative coworkers, politics, sabotage, lack of resources, no clear direction, vision, work overload, poor communication. All of those things are simply symptoms of a poor leadership culture inside your organization. So when you're trying to decide, well, what's the most important thing for us to think about in terms of culture and moving forward, the answer gets very simple. It's leadership. And if you think about this, a simple mental exercise, right? Let's say you're a junior manager inside an organization, and you've got good management, and you do your job, you leave, you come, your boss checks on you, make sure you do what you're supposed to do, you're on track, okay, fine. You go home, you make some money, right? So you make $100,000 a year. And then your friend calls you and says, hey, I've got a position at my company. You're going to do the same exact thing. Here's the catch, extra $5,000 a year. Do you leave? I mean, you'd be an idiot not to. Why not, right? Wait a minute, I got the same, everything's the same except for one thing. I get more money? Yeah, I'm going to make that. I'm going to do that. I'm going to go that way, right? Now look at the same scenario and change one variable. Now at your company, you have a great culture and you have a fantastic leader, a mentor that you trust and respect and connect with. And they've helped you improve your mindset. They've been there when you had a tough time with your family. They were flexible, and then you came back and you worked harder for them, and they appreciated it later. They're there for you, and that you're excited about your future because they're going to help you become a better human being. They're going to help you with your relationships. They're going to help you communicate. They're going to help you in every facet of your life, and you can't wait to see what the future is inside that company. Do you leave for an extra $5,000? No. You'd be an idiot too, because it's pretty rare. So what's the difference? And I want to be very clear on this, because I've said it before, and I've got, some people have pushed back. That's fine, you can push back. I mean, not right now, but later. It's fine. I'm on stage right now. Management is quickly becoming a commodity. Right? We've got team management software, you got Salesforce, you got best management practices. It used to be the manager had all this institutional knowledge in their head. I can go to YouTube and learn how to build a car right now. Knowledge is universal. So it means you're competing on price for people. That's a commodity. And you don't, competing on price for a commodity is not a position businesses want to be in. But that's where we're at if you don't invest in the leadership and the culture outside of pure management and KPIs and metrics inside of your company. About the same time this study came out, there was another study that came out, talked about the financial consequence of turnover in the last 2 years. And it, generally speaking, came up with an average of, for a salaried employee, it cost the company 6 to 9 months of their salary to replace them. So that means for that $100,000 worker that you just lost when you didn't need to, it's going to cost you $50,000 to $75,000. Now, listen, turnover is inevitable. Some people need to leave. Sometimes it's addition by subtraction, right? But if you have 10 managers leave, and you could have kept 5 good ones by investing in your culture and by investing in leadership and shifting from a management-centric sort of old school, do your job, show up, check out. That's fine, but they're going to leave you for another $3 an hour. Why wouldn't they? You set the system up like that. So this is critical when it comes to the ROI and profitability of your company. So whole person leadership, I kind of divide up into 3 levels, okay? Self-leadership mastery, right? We have to work on ourselves. We'll talk about the 4 areas of that. Whole person leadership, which is kind of as an individual level. What does that mean? How does that change the way I think about my interactions with my teammates and the culture I create with them individually? and then building elite teams. So how does this scale and how does this function inside a larger organization? So I like to divide whole person leadership up into 4 areas. So let's talk about self-leadership mastery. Because if you aren't a thriving individual like those executives I talked about, how are you going to inspire someone else to become one? So first let's talk about mind, right? Okay. You have to always be learning. We have to invest in our own professional development. The day you stop learning is the day you become uneducated. Because the knowledge about your industry, your knowledge about people, your knowledge about yourself will become a limiting variable if you don't continue to grow. The reality is that in life, as in business, there is no steady state. There is no such thing as homeostasis. You're either getting smarter or you're getting dumber. You're getting stronger, you're getting weaker. Your business is getting better or it's getting worse. That's it. It's like working out, right? You can't go work out and be like, man, I lost 100 pounds last year. I've never felt better. It's January. Glad that's over. Don't have to do that again. It's not going to go well. Rent's due. It's life. And you shouldn't avoid it because we actually get benefit by pushing ourselves that way. So another component of mindset, it's one of something I talk about in my book about gratitude. I'm just going to peel out this one that I think is probably the most important concept that I want you to wrap your head around. And I talk about this no matter what topic I'm talking about, any chance I get in front of an organization, because I think it's kind of the root of almost all human discontent and all the problems in our world. I know it's a big statement, but let me tell you what I mean. It's called epistemic humility. So epistemic humility has 2 parts. The first part, which everyone can agree to, the second part, I get pushed back unless I explain the first. The second part, I get pushed back if I don't explain the first. So the first just says, with time, energy, and effort, I can get better at any skill. I can get closer to probably being true, to being more knowledgeable, more skilled in any area, right? We can all agree on that, right? I mean, hopefully else, like what else are we doing here, right? Like if you guys are all in construction, and no matter what you're in right now, if this whole stage falls apart and it's me or you to fix it, like you want to do it. Like you don't want me to do this, okay? I'm not an engineer. Right? If one of you falls down and starts grabbing your chest and there's a cardiologist and that over there and me, I've got some medical training, but you probably want them to take care of you. Right? Okay, so we can all agree that that's the case. It's a sliding scale. We can also agree that we're better at certain things when we put more effort into it than we were before. Okay. So the second part that flows, that means that we have to admit as a human being that we're potentially always dealing with an incomplete data set. We could be missing a piece of information that changes our whole understanding about something. This has happened throughout, we used to think that the whole universe went around the earth. We kind of know that's not true now, right? So we're missing data. And that's the truth with everything. We're learning new things about ourselves, about the world, about our brains, every day. But when you have to live that way, because the moment that you say, no, this is untouchable, this belief, and I'm talking about every belief. I'm talking about politically, I'm talking about religion, I'm talking about how your business functions, operations. The moment you say, nope, I know, unquestioned, not 99.9% sure, but I know, you're closed off. You're not going to learn anymore, and you're going to have blindside. You're going to get blindsided because new information is going to come out. You're choosing ignorance because the idea that you could be wrong, the unknown, you're scared of. We can't live that way. We can't live that way as leaders because it leads us to be closed-minded to new ideas, to new takes on things. We saw a very real example about this recently internationally with the war in Ukraine. You have Putin, where if you had a different perspective, you said, hey, our tanks aren't quite as good as we think they are, poof, gone. Hey, I don't know if the modern way to live, warfare has kind of changed. Maybe we should look at that. No, Russia's the best. We're the greatest, right? Everyone was either exiled or pushed out of the circle if you didn't agree because it's unquestionable. In a war that he's convinced he's going to win in 3 weeks, he looks like he's going to lose. And everything in your life is like that. So if I could sit here and just say epistemic humility for an hour and actually get you to embrace that, I would feel like it was a success. So we got to work on our mind. I'm not going to go into the body too much, but right, there's 4 components of health. All right, there's hydration, sleep, nutrition, and activity. And you could be like, well, that doesn't apply to me. That's fine, but we all know if you're not your healthiest, you're not your best. I think my family deserves the best version of me. I think I deserve the best version of me. I think you do. I think the people on my team and my businesses deserve the best of me. And if you're not healthy, you're not taking care of yourself, you're not the best. So that means you're choosing your comfort over their success. That's not leadership. Now, I'm not saying you have to be a bodybuilder or a triathlete or something like that to be a business leader. Not saying that at all, okay? Please don't come at me like that. That's what I'm saying. But you have to care about other people's health, and you have to make it a priority, and you have to be knowledgeable about it, because as we've seen, as the pandemic's happened, and we've seen these personal and professional lives meld together, and all of a sudden we realize, oh, wait, we're the same person, whether we're in this house or we're in this building. All of a sudden it's like, wow, that's a revolutionary, right? Well, guess what? Their health matters. And so setting the example with your own health will lead to you achieving new levels of greatness. And hopefully by the end of this, you're convinced that is important. And, for myself, right, another component is kind of listening to your body, because kind of on the other spectrum maybe of this is things are going wrong with your own health, but you're not addressing it correctly, and you're letting it overwhelm you. I've done this multiple times in my own life. Got back from Afghanistan. I got into a bad relationship. I got married to a person I wasn't supposed to get married. I shouldn't have gotten married to. Might have been a little messed up in the head from it, and ended up going through a divorce. And it got so bad, my entire hormonal system shut down. And I started growing breast tissue. I had to get gynecomastia surgery because I had noticed my body wasn't even producing testosterone anymore because it was pushing too hard with too much trauma. And I missed time with my team. God forbid that we got called up for a big mission. I was incapable of doing it because I didn't take care of my own health. So you need to do that, okay? Okay, emotions. We need to be able to control our emotions. You need to be aware of them. But leaders need to learn how to respond to a situation, not react to a situation. Reaction is what kids do, right? Well, I saw a lot of hands raised for parents out there. You ever have maybe a little kid, like 4, 5, 6-year-old, is just bawling their eyes out, and you just try to listen, let's just be logical about this. Try to talk to them about it. Let's just think through this. Is this really going to lead to your outcome? And try to walk them through some sort of rational reason to not throw a tantrum. It's not happening, right? Because the part of their brain that allows you to do that as an adult isn't developed as a child. But I'll tell you right now, and I know you've probably met a lot in your life, there's a lot of chronological adults that don't have the emotional maturity of a child still. Because they're reacting. They're slaves to their emotions. I'm angry. I'm sad. I can't handle it. Instead of looking at emotions and what they are, all they are is, it's a data point. It's information. I'm angry. Why am I angry? I'm sad. Why am I sad? I'm defensive. Why am I defensive? It's no different than being like, oof, it's cold in here. Maybe I grab something cold, or I'm cold, right? You're cold. What does that mean? Well, I don't know. It depends. Are you doing some sort of crazy cold water immersion therapy for your health? And the answer is just suck it up. That's what you're supposed to do, right? Maybe it means you need to turn the heat up. Maybe you need to put a jacket on, idiot. It's cold outside, right? Who knows what that means, right? But it's just data. And emotions are the same way. And so we have to remove ourselves from being reactionary, being slaves to our emotions as leaders, and we have to have the emotional maturity to have that emotion hit, determine why we have that. Then we have to determine what is the desired outcome we want to happen here, and then we make the decision based on all the information available to get the desired outcome. Masters of our emotions, not slaves to them. And then finally, spirit. Okay? We have to be clear about our own purpose, have your own mindfulness practice. And this, we didn't say it, I guess, at the beginning, but some of this may challenge you, may disagree, that's fine, may make you uncomfortable, that's fine, I don't care. Right? I hate small talk anyway. You need to be very clear on your life purpose, a fulfilling life purpose. Because else, what are you doing? Just walking through the dark, trying not to die? Pretty much. Is that the way you want to live your life? It's not a fulfilling way to live your life. And you can do much, much greater than that. So we have to try to define that. And also, it doesn't have to be perfect. It can change over time. But I'll tell you, if you can't have that conversation with someone you're leading when you're trying to have them accomplish, they're going through a hard time and they're not sure which way to go, and you can't have a conversation like, what do you want out of life? I don't know. What do you want? Well, I'm not sure exactly, but I'm doing this right now. Here's how I got here. And you can walk them through that process. That's leadership. If you can't even have that discussion, poof, you can't really lead them. So leading other people, we need to be able to coach in all four of these areas. That means when you do counseling, when you do your regular, whatever you do, whether monthly, quarterly, whatever it is, you need to be talking about all those areas. If you're just talking about their KPIs, metrics, and job performance, you are managing them only, and that's fine, but they're going to leave you. You need to start talking about where they want to go, how their life is going, how can you support them achieve their goals inside and outside of work. That's leadership. We need to have proper leader dynamics. This is really hard, man. If I could come up with like a formula or a step-by-step process to nail this down, I'd be a lot richer man. But I will tell you that the two types of people I see really struggle with proper leader dynamics are very new, especially young leaders, and very senior leaders. So young, brand new leaders, you'll find struggle with having a proper relationship dynamic with the people they lead, especially if they were an internal promotion. Because how do we get that kind of first job, especially if we're getting internally promoted? It's kind of based on charisma a lot, right? It's like you become an informal leader among your group because people like you. You know? Hey, we all like Sally. Sally's good. We like talking with Sally, like being around Sally. Cool. Hey, Sally, you're the new manager. And if anyone here, and most of you are in leadership roles, I'm sure, inside your companies or have been in one before, does success as a leader depend on people liking you? No. Right? If that's how your whole structure of your company is based on the fact that, well, I'm just going to make decisions so people like me, that's not going to be a good company, right? But that's what they think, because that's all that's worked for them. That's what got them here. So we need to have a very direct conversation about their development as a leader and what that means. And when those two things come into conflict between my personal relationship and my professional relationship with someone who works for me, right? If that starts to get blurred or that person doesn't have the emotional maturity to know when we're in what situation, the personal relationship has to go. And that's hard to do sometimes, but you're going to have to do it, or I guarantee everyone here has junior leaders, brand new leaders. This is a conversation you need to prepare for to help guide them through that process. Communication. Clear communication, active listening. Don't jump to solving people's problems for them. Help them and coach them to get where they need to go, right? We have 4, but for now we'll talk about 3 kind of helping conversations we can have with our people, right? Coaching, mentoring, and teaching. All different types of conversations. Coaching, mentoring, and teaching, right? Sometimes we have to teach them a skill. Okay, sometimes we have to mentor them, like, look, I've been here, I've done that, here's how we can do this together. And then other times we have to coach, which means we have to help them come to their own conclusions. Not just give them the solution, because we're not building capacity for them to come up with their own solutions moving forward. So we have to actively listen and be able to do that and communicate effectively. And inside our organization, almost nearly every business failure, and if you think back, hopefully you'll find this true, nearly every business failure inside your company is either completely due to failure of communication, or it's at least a major contributing factor. If there's one sort of skill set inside your company that if you just got down and nailed down perfectly would absolutely change the trajectory, it would be if you had great communication. Because that's hard to do. I got weird things in my head, you got weird things in your head, you're coming from 2 different perspectives, I'm trying to make you think about this. It's a tough thing to do to communicate as human beings. But we need to put real effort into doing it, and that's what great SOPs and stuff like that are great for. But we have to be great communicators as leaders. Empathy. Seek first to understand, then try to be understood. Embrace epistemic humility. Realize that all of our realities in existence and our perspectives are completely different. There's a great book called The Righteous Mind that explores this concept to help you really understand it. I bet everyone in here can think about 2 people that they know in their lives that they both know are great people, like great human beings. Love them, awesome. Love you, awesome. And then there's some idea, concept, policy, whatever, that they are completely opposing on. And if you don't, you probably need to expand the people that you hang out with. You're getting kind of in your own bubble, right? So when that happens, how is that even possible? How is it possible that I know you are you're a great human being, you're trying to do the best for the world, and so are you, and you are completely at each other's throats about this one thing? How is it possible? Because the world's gray. And if you look at the world through one lens, you're right. If you look at it one lens, yeah, you're right too. That's why it's hard. We got to be able to navigate those waters and actually experience that, because you can't be the person who jumps in that one camp and closes your mind to the other one. As leaders, we have to be able to navigate that and say, look, I get where you're coming from on this and where you're coming from. Look, we have to find a way to make this work. But you have to be able to empathize, because if you're not able to open your mind enough to see another person's point, you won't be able to effectively do that. And then building elite teams. Managers and average leaders talk about and are great at incentive alignment, right? That's how functions work. Incentives work, where they drive behavior, absolutely. Great leaders and organizations talk about purpose alignment. They have the conversation with the person on your team and say, what are you trying to get out of this? When I got out of the military, I had so many senior commanders like, you could be just like me. And I'm like, I don't want to be you. And maybe you've got those people on your team. In your mind, you're like, well, of course they want to be a senior manager, and of course they want to be a director, and of course maybe they're like, I just want to make enough money to open a bakery. All right, cool. Let's see how we can help you do that. That's purpose alignment. And when you have those conversations, you start unlocking greatness for those inside your organization as a whole. 360 leadership. We've talked a lot about leading down, but leadership inside an organization isn't just down, right? The old structures of completely being top-down driven and as an organization are kind of going the way of the dodo. Now, I understand in construction and operations of warehouse, there is a lot that has to be directed, right? Like you can't have, like foremans up, be like, you know what, on this floor, we're going to do this. I get that, okay? But still, we have to lead across and up our organizations if we're going to have the best organizations possible. You have to be a great teammate to be a great leader, right? We have to help those to the left and right. Because here's what's going to happen. And some of you may have seen this in your time, because I know there's a lot of senior leaders here. What's going to happen is one of two things. One, that person you didn't help out, that you kind of had a toxic relationship, that you didn't step up for, that you didn't look out for, is going to get promoted. And guess what? Now they're your boss. And they're going to remember. Or you're kind of like toxic, gamesmanship works, and you get promoted. And now everyone that works for you hates you. Good luck. Somebody knows what I'm talking about. Seen it happen, right? So we got to be a great teammate for our people left and right, for organizations to succeed, and we got to lead up as well. Take care of our bosses. Look out. There's nothing better as a boss or as a leader when someone below you shows up with something that you didn't even ask for at just the right time. That's like the best feeling, right? It's amazing. That you didn't have to go down and ask for something and drag up information. That someone just said, here's the information you need. I'm like, oh my God. Right? It's the best. Focus on the mission, but take care of our people. We can't get that mixed up. Maybe that's I work with different types of organizations. Some people are so focused on mission, they don't take care of their people enough, and they leave. Okay? And other organizations are so focused on their people, they lose sight of the mission. Now, all of a sudden, all we're doing is having this conversation about everyone's feelings and what to call them and how they're doing it. And it's like, we're not even doing our job right now. Right? The whole purpose of us taking care of these people is to accomplish our mission. So we have to keep those things in balance. And finally, creating new leaders. Great leaders create new leaders. One of my favorite phrases I preach to all of my clients is, if you want a better tomorrow, create a new leader today. Okay. Last slide before we wrap. How do you know if this is working? How do you know this whole leadership thing is actually doing anything for you, right? Because it absolutely will impact your business, but you may not see it this fiscal quarter. So how do you know? So 4 things. 1, if people come to you after they let you down, they fail, something goes wrong, and their first sentence is about they're apologizing because they're worried about disappointing you versus the personal consequences of failing, you're winning. Because they are more worried about your perception of them as a human being and their capabilities than they are on potential negative consequences for their failure. It's a good sign. Mimicking your behavior. They start dressing like you do, talking like you do, doing what you do. All those things, that's a sign they want to be like you. They respect you. 3rd, sharing successes, and especially successes outside of work. When they tag you on that Facebook post of their kid winning a cross-country race, or they come and say, hey, we talked about how I was going to start walking every morning. I signed up for my first 5K in 3 months. I'm excited. Look, here's my registration. All those things, right? Hey, I signed up for the new course. We talked about me doing that certificate program so I can improve my career. Look, I signed up. I'm going to do it. I finished it. If they start doing that, you're winning. And if they start asking for your opinions, again, on things outside of work, hey, I'm having this issue with my teenage son. I don't know what to do. Hey, I'm having this issue with my own mindset. I'm having this issue with my parents. I don't know what to do about it. I'm having this I don't know which neighborhood to move in. I don't know. You're winning if they ask your opinion on that. But if they don't come to you with the only time they respect your opinion is about their financial incentive, you're not a leader. Just managing them. This is where this whole person leadership thing comes together. So these are your 4 leadership canaries to know when you're winning. All right. I believe that everyone in this room, due to your own potential and due to the just position in the world and the time that we're at right now, is capable of greatness. I hope that in your heart you believe that of yourself. That you're capable of greatness, of making a positive impact on the world and your company and the people you work with and your friends. I really hope you do, because you are. But what I will tell you is that with the potential for greatness comes an inherent moral obligation to be great. Because it's not just about you. None of us are self-made. It's about the people in Kiev right now that are not complaining about their commute to work. It's about the people in Africa that don't even know if they're going to have bread this winter because of what's happening over there. I don't know if anyone saw when Afghanistan fell, but there were mothers throwing their infants over razor wire to strangers in body armor and assault rifles. Can you imagine what the outlook for your future is like when you look at your brand new baby and decide, you know what, this is the better option for them? What would they give to be in your shoes right now? And it's for those who we've lost. So, we've all lost people in our lives. It's a part of life. But what do you do about it? Does it break you down? Or does it build you up? So how I approach this when it comes to greatness, it's an extra fuel, and really we're circling back to gratitude right now, is when I lose people, people I've lost in my life or aren't in my life anymore, I look at their potential for greatness. What were they going to do for the world? Because it's easy to give up on ourselves sometimes. It's easy to stay in bed. It's easy not to push for ourselves. But what I would try to do is I take a sliver of the potential that they would have had, the goodness they would have given to the world, and I accept that as part of my responsibility now. And in that way, they live forever. Unfortunately, I could fill this slide a few times. I had to put more than a dozen of my friends in the ground before the age of 35. And these are all great human beings. Fantastic human beings. The smartest, bravest, most altruistic people you ever met in your whole life. And you could probably put some people up there for yourself as well, because it's not just military members, although now you know about them, so I hope you take a sliver for each one of them up there as well. Richard, Mike, Scott, Phil, Jason, Drew, Scott, Sean. I recently lost my cousin last year to cancer after battling for years. And she left behind her 2 young kids and her loving husband, Wade. She was the kindest human on the planet. Lori was amazing. She was my babysitter growing up. I was raised by a single mom. We lived in the basement of my aunt and uncle's house while my mom was going to school because we had nowhere else to live. She's like a sister. And when I catch myself being a little cruel or closed-minded, Lori's looking at me, demanding that I become a better human. And so what I'm telling you right now is that when it comes to leadership, when it comes to your own mindset, you owe it to yourself. And if that's not enough, you owe it to the people on the slide and the people in your lives to become the greatest version you can possibly be. And your company and your organizations will never achieve greatness if you don't do it yourself. You're going to become the limiting variable. Leadership is, whole person leadership can transform our world. Imagine this. Imagine that in the next generation, 50% of the population had that mindset. Imagine the world we would create. I truly believe that we can measure the world that we currently have to live in and the world's potential, what we could live in. The difference there can be measured by those who settled for good when they could have been great. So I hope you make the choice to be great for yourself and your organizations. Thank you.